Here's, man. The defensive line especially has been looking really good through training camp. A lot of people are high on it. Obviously, we get, for right now, a healthy Jason Barrett. We should be getting Mosley back into pads here pretty soon. The safeties we all know are super elite as long as they can stay healthy. And the biggest thing was D Ford actually being able to practice being pads and, do some drills and whatnot. So knowing all of the things, and obviously we're very, very early into training camp, but if everything stays the same, man, how good do you think this 49ers defense can be?
So here comes the realist in me. And I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry, 49er fans. I don't think the defense would be that great. I think they're going to take a step back. So there's a couple reasons behind it. First of all, through the first week of training camp, Nick Bosa has just been non-existent. He's practiced, I think, 2 days. He hadn't even practiced. He's stretched for 2 days. So I think he's behind schedule from what the 49ers expected him to be. So I think that Bosa early on, probably the first 4 or 5 games, is going to be on a pitch count. So I don't think that we're going to get the full complement of Nick Bosa until at least 2 months into the season. That's going to hurt our pass rush a lot early on. D Ford, again, we don't know how effective he's going to be after basically missing a year and a half of football. How good is he really going to be? And when we throw in our secondary, our secondary is terrible. I mean, I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. Our secondary from the cornerback position is terrible. Safety position, Jimmy Ward, I think, is an elite free safety. Strong safety, there's some questions because, Tart hasn't even practiced in training camp yet. So there's some injury concerns there. But cornerback is just completely barren, man. We have one legitimate NFL starter. That's, Verrett. And he's injury prone. Verrett's injury prone. He's not vaccinated. He could potentially miss time. We don't really know how good Emmanuel Mosley is. We don't know if he's going to even be a capable starter. And behind those two, we have nothing at cornerback. The last thing, before you go in, Sunil, is I wrote an article about a month ago, and it was titled 3 Reasons Why the 49ers Could Miss the Playoffs. Everybody went crazy, but 2 of my 3 reasons are actually happening right now. 2 of the 3 reasons I laid out, well, actually all 3 of them are potentially happening, but 2 of them are already coming to fruition. One of them was the lack of depth at key positions, especially the cornerback position. I talked about this a month ago. We didn't have a plan to solve it, and we're seeing it unfold exactly like I said worst case scenario could unfold. Ambry Thomas, we were banking on him. He's a rookie. Lenoir, we were banking on him. He's a rookie, unproven. Neither one of them is really having a solid camp at all. None of them are really getting any reps with the ones. I think Ambry Thomas got some reps with the ones, but he's been getting roasted. And another reason that I talked about was first-year defensive coordinator DeMeco Ryans. Okay, now I have high hopes for DeMeco. I think he can be a good coach down the line. But when we look at history and we look at statistics, since the year 2000, that's 10 seasons of football or 20 seasons of football, no first or second year defensive coordinator has ever had a defense ranked in the top half of the NFL. Did you know that?
I did not.
Since 2000, that includes Robert Saleh, who just got a head coaching job with the Jets. Robert Saleh's first season, we were ranked 25th in points and 24th in yards in defense, Robert Saleh's first year. I mean, obviously we had a trash roster at that point, but even the great Robert Saleh falls into that category. So if we go off of just historical precedent, the likelihood that we're even going to have a 16th ranked defense is not good. It's never happened in history since 2000.
So my question to you is, last year's defense was ranked where?
Last year we were ranked 17th in points, 5th in yards.
Okay, but overall, what was the ranking?
8th.
8th, right? So who did we lose last year? Or who did we lose from last year that is significant to where you think that this season we're just going to fall off the map?
Well, I mean, the biggest loss is Robert Saleh. I mean, that's an elite defensive play caller, game planner, making adjustments during the
So
game.
that's where I disagree. So I don't think Robert Sala is. I think he's elite for what he is, but he's a very safe defensive coordinator. And D'Amico Ryans is a guy who's played. He played the quarterback of the defense at a very high level for a very long time. He is somebody who, on the playing field, had to make those adjustments as the middle linebacker for those Texans teams where they had, pretty good defenses. And I think that it's a lot of doom and gloom out of you as far as like just believing that everything that could go wrong will go wrong. For me, I think that this defense is going to be extremely solid, and it starts with the defensive line. I was speaking to Silverado Kev earlier this week, and he was talking about he believes this defensive line could be even better than the 2019 defensive line. And the reason for that is because of the interior defensive line depth that we have. And when you have a fresh body and you could just rotate 3 or 4 guys consistently on the interior, the offensive line doesn't get any breaks. So they're going to have to compete with the depth of this defensive line. And even if Nick Bosa is on a pitch count and D Ford's on a pitch count, we still have Samson Ebicom. We still have Arden Key. We still have guys that could come in and be extremely productive. That's a fresh body that's going at these offensive linemen every single game, day after day after day. Now, when you go to the secondary, we've never had this huge depth secondary. What year was that we had all of these secondary guys where even if they got injured, we had a guy that steps up that's a lockdown corner? We've never had that. Jason Verrett is, when he plays, is a top 10 cornerback, and he's betting on himself this year. He only signed a 1-year deal. He knows he understands that if he gets injured this year and doesn't play, next season he's not getting a long-term deal from anybody. Especially so he knows he has to stay healthy. He was able to stay healthy relatively last season. I believe he's figured something out and he's going to be healthy. Now, you just trashing Mr. Mosley like he's not a bona fide starting cornerback. We've seen what he's capable of. He's been starting for the 49ers, not maybe consistently, but he's shown that he could go up and compete against these guys. And then we have, K'Wan Williams that's there, who's, an elite, elite slot corner that, once again, on a 1-year deal, have to stay healthy. Otherwise, his future in the league isn't, necessarily guaranteed. And then we have, a pretty decent group of as far as depth with safeties, and then 2 like superstars in Tart and Ward. So and then we haven't even talked about the linebacking core, who has, all pro Fred and, big Dre, as, the two cornerstones of our linebacking core. So for me, if Nick Bosa and D Ford play, it's just going to make us a top 3 defense. If they don't play, I don't see us falling down past 8 because we didn't lose anybody that's like majorly, as far as player, that majorly affected our success from last season. So for me, it's just you kind of are saying these guys that played well enough to be ranked 8th overall are all of a sudden just going to stop playing as well as they did last season. And I think we got upgrades at all these other positions. So tell me why I'm wrong.
There's a couple things there, Sunil. Let me tell you why you're wrong. Okay. So 8th rate defense. Okay. So we lost Robert Saleh, and I'll agree with you. The first 3 seasons that Robert Saleh was the defensive coordinator, he was a very conservative play caller. But last year, he earned his head coaching job because he completely transformed our defense. We got out of the base zone defense that we usually run. We started playing more press man, more man coverage. He tailored the defense to the athleticism of the cornerbacks that we started playing when Richard Sherman got injured. So to say that it's not an aggressive defense, I think the first 3 years of Robert Saleh's career, that's an accurate statement, but last season was not. He completely transformed the way he calls defense and we played. And I think his adjustments based around the injuries had a lot more to do with the performance of the defense than our actual players that were there doing it. Aside from Fred Warner, who's an All-Pro, probably the best linebacker in football, I don't think that we have another top-tier player on defense like that at their position. Not even Nick Bosa. Nick Bosa, to me, is one of the most overrated players in the NFL, basically. I mean, after 2019, he was ranked, I think, like the 6th or 7th best player in the NFL after one season playing, that he had 9 sacks. He didn't even have double-digit sacks that season. He had a whole bunch of quarterback pressures. I get that. But in 2019, on our Super Bowl run, he wasn't even our best defensive lineman. We lost our best defensive lineman from that team. You know who I'm talking about. He's no longer a part of our defensive line. And he's a dominant player. He's probably the second best interior defensive lineman in the whole NFL. And we don't have him anymore. So for us to think that our 2021 defensive line is going to be better than the 2019 unit, it has our best 2 players. The 2019 unit had our best 2 players healthy most of the season in Dee Ford and Nick Bosa. Those are our 2 best that we have now. They were healthy back then. Now they're on pitch counts, so they're not going to be used as much as they were in 2019. And then we lost All-Pro. The best player on the defense at that point was DeForest Buckner. So I think there's a lot of depth, yes, but I don't think that there's all-star, all-world talent on the defensive line.
Compared to last year, though, who did we lose that you're afraid of that's going to really make the defense play worse this season?
Yeah,
that's what I don't understand, because like you're basically saying Salah's gone, so these guys aren't going to play well. So you're basically discounting DeMeco Ryans being able to play that. DeMeco Ryans' natural inclination is to play the style of defense that Salah transitioned to. So for me, I think that the type of players that they brought in through the draft, as well as far as the corners that they brought in, are geared towards more playing man press, and then really letting the defensive line eat. And DeMeco Ryans already talked about he's going to be aggressive with the blitz packages. And I think that overall, the defense is actually going to explode this year. We are assuming, like, everything you're saying is assuming Nick Bosa, Dee Ford are on a pitch count, assuming DeMeco Ryans is not going to coach well, assuming that the cornerbacks are going to get injury. So like, there's like 5 or 6 things that have to happen for your scenario to like play out. And I just think that's like, I don't know. I just don't think that everything that can go wrong could go wrong, because last season we were decimated by injuries, right, on both sides of the ball, and we still finished off 8th ranked defense. So for me, I think we're getting healthier. We're getting stars back. It's only going to go up from there. It's not going to go down.
Now, so I'm going to tell you, Sunil, I hope you're right. Like, I do hope you're right. But when I look at it, with
your pessimistic mindset,
when I look at it without the
realistic,
fan blinders,
pessimistic, all right.
Without I call it fan blinders. When I take the Homer shades off, Sunil, and I look at it for what it is. I look at it for, hey, we have to factor injuries into it. 70% of the time, somebody goes down on our team. Like, we have the most games lost to injury over the last 4 seasons than any other team in the NFL, and it's not even close. I mean, so for us to say you're assuming this is going to happen, we have to be ready for this to happen, because it's been proven year after year after year that this happens. This is who we are. This is not an assumption that this is going to happen. This is who we are.
I guess for me, I just don't understand how you could think it's going to be worse than last season when we're only getting guys back. We're not losing guys. Last year's we were 8th ranked with only Jason Verrett and Jimmy Ward and Fred Warner being like superstars. Everybody else was like backup guys that might not even be on the team right now. We weren't as deep on the defensive line. We had the same guys playing over and over and over again. This year, we have way more depth and productive players on the defensive line. We have, more depth at the safety position, and we have stars all over the place that if Bosa and Dee Ford are playing at both at the same time, that's a pretty much an unstoppable defensive line mixed in with Armstead, Kinlaw, or whomever's playing, at that other spot interiorly. So I mean, we could go around in circles with it. Both of us are just assuming and guessing at this point, but I'm just a lot higher, man. I don't think that a team that brings in better players, brings everybody back, plus gets a D Ford and a Nick Bosa back is all of a sudden going to be worse than the previous season. To me, that just doesn't make sense. No matter how much 2 + 2 can make equal 5. To me, you get 2 superstars back to a defense, your defense is going to be better, not worse. Even if they're on a pitch count, because last season they weren't even on a pitch count. They weren't even playing. So you're only getting, even if they're on a pitch count, those pitches, you're getting unstoppable performance out of them.
That's a good point.